for me. Who will look after me now?
Colonel, I see you've arrived.
I have arrived.
Well, I'm afraid he's running over with the IMF people. Would you care for some tea while you wait?
Wait? Wait? Well, I suppose I might wait, but I don't think I care for your tea. How can it compare to the fine teas specially imported to my summer palace direct from the mountains of Tibet? Oh, to think that same tea is now in the very moment being brewed by some classless oik, some insurgent for his motley pack of insurgents. His traitor collaborator friends are drinking from my finest china and getting fingerprints all over my golden furniture. The sorrow, the injustice.
Permit me to observe, Colonel, that perhaps if you hadn't spent quite so much money on Tibetan tea and more money on countermeasures, shall we say, that you might not find yourself in this predicament in the first place.
Countermeasures, miss?
Permit me to explain. You were deposed by what they're calling a Twitter revolution, yes?
Well, if by this you mean that I've now been forced to flee my beloved country in terror at the brutality of the insurgent forces, and as a result the birds no longer sing in the trees, then yes.
That's not quite what I mean, Colonel, with greatest respect. I'm talking about the internet, the World Wide Web, mobile smartphones. People call it the Twitter revolution because they believe that without all of this technology, the revolution may not have happened in the first place. They believe that because the web and mobile phones put people directly in touch with one another, because they're not centrally controlled like broadcast television or easy to intimidate like national newspapers, they can lead to radical political change. They believe fundamentally that because these technologies put information in the hands of more people, they lead to radical political reform. You follow me, yes?
I've heard of such things.
Well, then you should also understand that most despotic regimes, I'm terribly sorry, I mean most benevolent true leaders, take a great interest in the internet. They take a great interest in mobile smartphones.
They do?
They do, because it turns out that they're very good for keeping tabs on people.
They are?
They are. I believe there are several fellows enjoying the hospitalities of Evin Prison as we speak, thanks to a little helping hand from Nokia Siemens and the surveillance tools they developed and sold to the Iranian government.
That rascal Ahmadinejad, he always did love showing off the latest gadgets to me.
I think you'll find that mobile phone tapping is just the start of it.
It is? Do tell me more.
Well, let's start with censorship. Western companies like NetSweeper and WebSense will happily sell you the software that can block your citizens from...
I prefer beloved people to citizens. It sounds nicer somehow.
I'm sorry. That can block your beloved people from accessing any type of content online that you don't want them to see. These systems are in use in Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Yemen, Sudan, and, up until recently at least, Tunisia. The best thing about these systems is that the Western companies that make them do the hard work for you. That you can choose from a selection of checkboxes, advocacy groups, politics and opinion, gay and lesbian, and with one tick in a checkbox, your beloved people can be spared the indignity of accessing information on these troubling topics.
What about women's rights? It's imperative that we're able to block all information on women's rights.
Quite so, Colonel. Then, of course, there's surveillance. This can get a lot more detailed than simply listening in on other people's telephone conversations. You can buy off-the-shelf monitoring systems that let you know who's in contact with whom, servicing lots of potential dissidents, I mean insurgents, that you wouldn't have known about otherwise. Eric Honecker would have loved it. You can buy server setups that will spew out lists of computers that are trying to access banned materials, letting you know which of your beloved people may be in need of a little re-education. You can even buy surveillance projects which let you listen in on conversations that dissidents think are being encrypted.
The juicy stuff.
Exactly. I recommend Gamma International. They're based in the UK, and they've developed a virus that you can use to infect someone's computer without anybody knowing, with a bugging device. And for times of crisis, you can, of course, always switch the internet off.
You can really turn it off.
It It's possible. There are various ways to do it. Internet exchange points, I believe, are very handy in this regard. And you can always lean on the network operators and tell them you'll revoke their licenses if they don't comply. I believe that Vodafone Egypt were very amenable in this respect when they were approached by Mubarak. Gaddafi did it too.
Oh, Mama, now there's a man I deeply admire.
Yes, so I see. Anyway, the greatest thing is that the West is engaged in all of this activity itself. Surveillance, censorship, switching off networks at times of civil strife. Partly why all these Western companies are building this technology in the first place. So there'll be no disapproving looks at the UN.
And of course, I hear the West has its own insurgency problems these days.
Terrorists, yes, and paedophiles. Paedophiles are very useful. Useful, I mean, as a justification for taking control of the internet. It's funny, though, I don't think you'd guess in a million years the other reason the West has for developing all of these technologies.
Oil?
Nope.
Weapons?
Nope.
Something to do with the Common Agricultural Policy?
No. It's copyright infringement.
Copyright infringement? You mean Hollywood movies, Police Academy sequels, Mariah Carey?
That's exactly what I mean.
Sometimes I think I will never understand the West.
Quite. Anyway, wiretapping, censorship, that's just the start of it. The discerning despot has a whole range of more complex technologies at his disposal. Technologies so clever that it's nigh on impossible to expose who's deploying them in the first place. In Syria, for example, the Facebook sign-up page was hijacked using something hackers call a man-in-the-middle attack. Prominent dissidents had their login details stolen and their Facebook accounts hacked. And in Iran, hackers used another vulnerability in the internet's architecture to spy on people reading their Gmail.
Very good, very good.
And it's widely believed that the US and Israel deployed a very sophisticated virus called Stuxnet, which was found to have infected computers in an Iranian nuclear plant.
We have no nuclear weapons. Honest.
But excuse me, Colonel, I'll just go and see if he's ready for you.
If only I had known all of this before, I might have been able to protect my beloved people from the insurgency and being corrupted by those pesky kids. I might be in my summer palace right now, drowning out the tortured sounds of those very same insurgents, listening to my wives playing on the zither. I might be safe to enjoy the scent of figs in my home country, the country it was my birthright to lead, instead of waiting to be seen by some tuppenny elected leader in an office that smells of warm sheep. And now I have to throw myself on his mercy, a pitiful, poor, asylum-seeking ex-beloved leader who should have spent less money on Tibetan tea and more on WebSense and Nokia Siemens and Gamma International.
Please do accept my deepest apologies for keeping you waiting, Colonel. Mr. Cameron will see you now.